Hello everyone. If you do not know me, I am Pinky Blue, but you can call me H0peful. Lucille is an animator/artist who is 22 years old and has currently been outed as at the very least, a predator. I will refer to Lucille as she, her, and Lucille because that's how everyone has been addressing her and she has not stated otherwise. This is for currently, as in me writing this on the 24th of January 2021, so if in the future this gendering and naming seems incorrect, I do apologize.
This video will contain sensitive content based on allegations towards me. Please be advised that those of younger ages shouldn't involve themselves due to the following: mentions of swearing, rape, porn, grooming, pedophilia, ostracizing/bullying of individuals, sexual abuse, the use of slurs, exploitation, doxing, toxic behavior, mentions of suicide, the joking of suicide, and endangerment of minors. If you're sensitive to any of these topics, I advise you to click off this video. You have been warned.
Let me be clear that I do not have any evidence leading up to this video, but the others who have performed rants indeed do. The links will be in the description below. This is only a rant/commentary and I only intend to give my responses. So far Lucille has done a great job at giving a trigger warning but has failed to admit to one thing. She has said that everything about her were merely allegations. An allegation is to be treated normally as rumors until proven true, at least from my experience. The evidence shown against her were facts, not allegations. These are not allegations, these are facts, evidence, against her. Keep in mind I do plan to cut some parts out to make editing and timing much easier, so if you wish to see that video, please look it up yourself. If she has taken it down, oh well. Anyways.
My name has become infamous now, what with the hashtag #StopHopefulLucille on Twitter, that only survived for 3 days at the latest, and the sudden video uploads of prison mate Luke and Nani, along with a few others, but they're mostly minors that don't know the full story of the situation. The victim wishes for me to not name her, so I will not do so. Instead, I'll refer to her simply by her pronouns.
Yet you have kinda contradicted yourself by mentioning her.
I'll make sure to edit in when I'm talking about her, since things may get confusing at times. This video is meant to look at her video, while trying to explain my slip-ups and any additional context she never gave. So I apologize beforehand if I forget something,
purposely exclude something,
or if I didn't give a better explanation to a specific point.
If you go back to Stream's video, Stream only had a problem with her name when you were using her real name. Stream otherwise didn't appear to have any problems. You, as well as using Stream's video, is still mentioning her due to the fact that Stream has a large following and the video can as easily be traced back to her. I won't be repeating what others say, so if I notice I am repetitive it will be cut out.
She feels as if I had groomed her, so I apologize. Again, it wasn't my intention whatsoever.
Sorry, had to switch text-to-speech sites. Might happen a few times. But you see what she is doing here? Lucille is trying to play victim by saying she didn't know it was wrong when not only is it a law, but it is common sense. Lucille knew fully well what Stream's age is, yet she proceeded to have feelings for a minor anyway and label Stream to victimize herself. Last note from me, I might only go halfway into this video as a part 1 due to the lack of space I have. Anyways, let's continue.
You never mentioned being uncomfortable with all of this during and after our relationship, until now.
Why should she have to mention it? Lucille is an adult. Stream is a minor. As an adult, Lucille should have had the common sense to stop what was going on, or better yet, never initiated the feelings in the first place.
So I genuinely had no idea you were uncomfortable or disgusted with my past. She states that she's afraid for my fans because of my supposed manipulative behavior during my video. However, I won't go into this thoroughly until later. Do know that it wasn't my intention to sound like that. She claims the reasoning behind my kinning and acting as Naruto was so people attached to that character would be more inclined to believe me. While yes, you can have your own opinion and speculation as to why I did that in my video, it was nothing more than a hyperfixation on a character and incorporating them into my persona at the time.
You continue to use Google definitions as if it helps you now. If that were the case, you should have mentioned it before, but even then, I don't think anyone would believe you.
She says that I didn't have to add in the fact that she had dead named me since nobody outside my Discord server knew that I had changed my name in the first place. I didn't even change my YouTube description either. She also claims that because of this, I had tried to paint her as if she had previous knowledge of my name change. and because I had changed my name and channel name, it was assumed that I only did so that I could shake off whatever allegation my previous names had attached to them, which is not entirely true, but I'll let it slide.
Let's go back to the fact that Lucille just admitted to it being, quote, not entirely true. Not to mention, if you had changed your name, you would have changed your user on social media right then and there. Correct? So either what Lucille is saying is true, that she had waited to post about the name change, or she purposely waited to shake off the allegations, which, as you can see, really did not work.
What she is doing is manipulative by using my real-life name, because she knows it will put me under intense amounts of distress, especially since she could easily have used the name Stream as she has done so before. Lucille, by the way, is 22. There's no way in the 7 levels of hell she did not know the consequences of her actions. If you believe me to be simply speculating about this, here is one of her replies where she directly acknowledges she did this out of spite.
And because she had used my dead name, I apparently used her real name as a manipulation tactic so that it would distress her and that I used it out of spite. Yes, I did use her real name out of spite, which I apologize for, but at the same time, no, that wasn't my only thought process behind.
Lucille just admitted it. In a situation like this, there is no such thing as they did at first. Lucille should never have used her real name. At all.
Behind that. My thought process of using her real name was because I wasn't talking about Streamline Workshop, the only persona that makes rant videos and animation memes, but I was talking about the person behind the screen. Nevertheless, I shouldn't have used her real name, and I apologize.
Lucille then tries to make it seem like I am just as bad as her by sticking me with a label that sounds scary and people are generally unfamiliar with. Except, it's not a crime to be attracted to people who are older than you. It's a natural part of evolution to be attracted to signs of maturity. That's normal. Either way, this definition cannot be applied to me, as it is well known that I am asexual, meaning I don't feel sexual attraction to anyone. Being attracted to someone who is significantly less mature to you, in mind or body, is a crime. Lucille brushes aside the entire last section by leaving me with a definite label, and herself with none. The viewer is then sure to latch on to the label that is given, and since all previous labels are just obviously bad things, will automatically assume that the label assigned to me is bad, and makes me just as bad as her. This is one of the first examples of Lucille's manipulation.
I brought up the term teleophile because I was given labels such as pedophile and child predator, and groomer. A teleophile doesn't have much of a weight added to it since it's completely normal for a younger person to be attracted to an older person, but the moment an older person likes a younger person, it's a different story. And because I brought up teleophilia and labeled her under it, it automatically doesn't apply to her because the definition for the term says you have to be sexually attracted to the mature party, and she's asexual. Then it'd be correct for me to say that I don't apply under pedophilia because my sexuality doesn't apply under a certain age group. I gave her a definite label, teleophile, while I left myself with none. However, I classified myself under H0peful, and then corrected myself by saying that I can't be because I'm not sexually attracted to minors, and certainly not this specific age group. Which means you're correct in saying that you're not a teleophile because you're not sexually attracted to adults.
Lucille was still fully aware that Stream was asexual, or so it appears. Lucille may not have came after Stream sexually, so I will agree that the term pedophile isn't the term for Lucille since it would only be used if Stream was groomed sexually. However, Lucille still romantically came after Stream, so child groomer is still the term here.
Lucille's recounting of this situation is mostly accurate up to this point. I say mostly because she has left out an important detail that is quite incriminating to her person. Lucille and I met on the 9th of February. I found her channel through Fano shouting out Lucille on her old Discord and community tab. I was the one who asked Fano to include Lucille in the family, with the hopes of growing closer to her.
I had claimed she initiated the crush-like behavior first, which is true, but to her, I'm lying because I initiated first without knowing her feelings, which you cannot blame me for since I didn't know her feelings during the time until you had told me. Regardless, she said that she might like me only because she was a fan and had asked Fano to add me to the family in hopes of getting closer to me. Other people knew she had an interest in me, and I obviously hadn't known, but I confidently took the role of dad and rightfully played my part as part of the family.
What Lucille failed to mention, however, is that she hid her age from me for quite some time. I can't find the exact date she revealed her age to me, but up until the 18th of February, I was still in the dark about her age. Why would Lucille frame the situation like this? It makes it seem as if I, having fully known her age, should have backed off.
During the time I was getting to know everyone, my age wasn't known and only...
I won't come out here and say she should have told everyone her age because I will agree that is personal information, minor or not. However, she should have let it be known that she wasn't a minor.
Had she just said this and maybe just maybe this all could have been avoided.
A handful of friends knew. She claims that I'm hiding my age not because of a legitimate reason, but as a tactic pedophile / child predators / groomers use. I'm not denying that it was wrong of me to keep my age from her. It's not that I didn't want to keep my age hidden because I was a predator trying to lull a minor to surrender themselves to me, which, by the way, but because I wasn't comfortable with giving my age or even comfortable being my age.
This is still not a proper excuse. Again, had Lucille just mentioned the fact that she wasn't a minor in the first place and quite possibly this could have been avoided. She didn't. And here we are now. Even if Lucille wasn't comfortable, it is still something that is a fact, and the fact is, Lucille, you are a grown adult. You should have known to have said something, and quite possibly this wouldn't have gotten this far, or at the very least, this bad. Lucille, you should know better.
Never mind that I was a starstruck minor without a fully developed brain. Why would Lucille hide her age for any reason? The excuse that it's because she's part of the animation meme community can only be used to her detriment.
I won't even use the excuse that because I was in the animation community, it gave me the right to hide my age. Again, it was not the reason why I did so in the first place. And I apologize for not knowing any better, despite being the older party. She called herself a starstruck young fan, hence why she liked me and why she didn't back off in the first place. However, I cannot blame you. You weren't supposed to be the one putting your foot down because you're a minor in this situation. I should have been the one to know when things are getting uncomfortably close, yet I didn't, and this is my fault to bear. But there is a keynote here. Neither of us officially dated. Neither of us, to my knowledge, have officially dated. I called it a relationship because it was closer than what a friendship felt. We had a mutual connection. With the way we spoke in our DMs, it could have only been seen as a romantic committed relationship. However, when I say my relationship with him or my relationship with her, it could mean anything unless given context. However, I should have given context so as not to confuse anyone, so I'll say it here. We did not officially date. It was assumed so by her when she had turned 16. We never asked the other if we wanted to date.
Yet it had been discussed that when Stream turned 16, that Lucille and Stream would date. Had it been discussed otherwise, Stream would not be saying this. It was never properly discussed, therefore Stream was of course going to jump to conclusions.
Lucille openly admits that she was thinking and drawing sexual things. But what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is defined as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of sexual nature. With this definition, I can only say that this happened once, and it was in the previous screenshot I had shown. I do not think I can pin any more examples because at the time Lucille said these things, I was perfectly fine with them, even if I no longer am now.
She claims that I have sexually harassed her because of the only known sexual discussion we had. However, it can't be labeled as such since she complied and indulged in the conversation.
It's time to stop!
Minors cannot consent to anything sexual. Just because they indulge in it doesn't mean shit. Stop it.
Again, note that she is asexual and was repulsed by sex in general. But nevertheless, she never said she was uncomfortable, nor did she try to voice it until after the fact. However, I shouldn't have been talking to you like that in the first place. I understand that now, even if it took me this long because you never spoke against it in the first place. And I can't blame you. There are photos of our time together, but for the sake of Iris, I won't release these images unless permitted by her.
Remember this. You will not be showing these images unless you have my permission, you say. I have not gotten one DM from you asking for approval to share these images. I am not saying that I am not okay with her using these images. I am saying that this is an example where she says one thing and then does the opposite.
She references the fact that I had shown the IRL images without her consent. Yet she still continues to make the Google Drive publicly available for anyone to see. I had originally thought that since she had made these images public, that it was okay for me to show them.
Let's talk about Severance in more detail. What that is basically a game Lucille created after cutting her ties with all of her previous friends. On January 1st, Lucille left without saying a word, instead made a few videos taunting her previous friends while they were still hurting immensely from her severing ties with her old friends.
She mentions the severance in her Google Doc and in the video. However, there are two types of severances, but because they're heavily related to one another, I'll start with the event that caused the game's release. The reason I had left entirely was that I wasn't doing so well mentally. I had two friends at the time that I saw as creative partners, one of them being Looney Tooney, who we'll address later in the video. My thought process behind my disappearance was because I was starting to see signs in my behavior that made me obsessive. Looney Tooney was already in a relationship and the other friend was currently getting into one at the time. I never spoke about it to them because I was worried that I'd only make things worse by openly admitting that I was getting obsessive, possessive, and jealous over their healthy relationships. My desire to be incorporated in their lives was spiraling out of control. So without saying a word, I left. This isn't the first time I've done something like this since I've known someone for 5 years now that has in fact seen me disappear without a trace but somehow manages to find me continuously. Yes, I also made a video that only poured salt in their open wounds. That I will not excuse since it was unnecessary and had only made their suffering worsen. I apologize for that. This next person I'll be talking about is in fact the woman who is willing to help me with the game Severance. I don't remember the exact date we spoke, but it must have been either late December 2019 or early January 2020. Now, the first draft of the game was set in an elementary where you were supposed to look for clues on what happened to Lou and why she disappeared. Looney Tooney and my other friend were in this game looking for answers. My friends who played the games were the ones looking for answers. Anyone else were confused bystanders thinking the game would just be that, a game. The game had multiple revisions until the one we have now, Severance. Truthfully, the game only had the name Severance because of the event that I childishly called the Severance, because I was severing myself from the online world. Everyone vents. This is no surprise. How I thought I had done it was through an artistic representation. However, it had only caused further suffering, but the game doesn't go into great detail about anyone else except for the character known as Lou, who is a fictional representation of me.
Lucille may claim this was because she thought herself to be a toxic person, but this video she made shortly after severing her ties doesn't seem to reflect that.
The hurt animatic she mentions doesn't include her in it, but instead my other ex-friends, 2 of which that I've spoken to personally. But this was used as a point of my manipulation and or toxicity.
Whether Lucille knew it or not, it really was used to be toxic. The fact that the video is still up as public states it as such. I will say it again. It's public. Not unlisted or private. Public. Using your old friends who, as it seems to me, did no wrong to you personally, you vented about them knowing it would hurt them. But you did it anyway.
She eventually came back to close the server down for good, while making the whole thing a joke, and her chosen friends laughed along with her, completely disregarding the anguish and hurt her friends were going through, including me. This is another example of Lucille being a genuinely toxic and horrible person.
The reason I came back to the server was that I had enough of multiple mods harassing my younger sister, simply for removing mod roles, changing roles back to their original names, etc. However, I had asked her to take care of my server and to keep it the way it was. The blame should be put on me and not for her simply doing as she was asked to.
No one at all is blaming Lucille's sister. No one at any point in time brought her up. Why she is still getting mentioned I have absolutely no clue.
I treated the deletion of my server as a joke because I was already done with everybody's shit against my sister.
No one again has brought Lucille's sister into this. By continuing mentioning her, Lucille appears to only be shifting blame, but I could be wrong.
The server was a fuck-up and I'm the only one to blame in the first place. Everyone else was still freshly suffering. They wanted answers from me, but I merely brushed them aside as I deleted the server without a second thought.
If anyone else were to do this, I hope you are all aware that by doing this you would be subjecting everyone to pain around you, so of course they would feel hurt. Not to mention worried. So please do not do this.
Something she did that was particularly disgusting was how she treated one of her former best friends, Weston. Weston was completely destroyed by the shenanigans Lucille had pulled, as they had been friends for the better part of 2 years. And when Weston found out Lucille had another server and managed to get invited in, Lucille basically gave him the cold shoulder the whole time, modeling a character after Weston's.
Remember Looney Tooney? She mentions Looney Tooney, who created a character named Wally. This character was paired with Juniper in my stories. After I had left and I wasn't on speaking terms with Looney Tooney, I designed Harper as the replacement of Wally since he wasn't my character. They both claim I had stolen the design and or was inspired by it. Twice. No character design or art style belongs to a single person. Everyone has their own creative differences, and thus this new character shouldn't be seen as nothing more than a new character. Toon Lou wasn't inspired by Looney Tooney's art style. The description reads, Bendy and the Ink Machine. I've only ever seen Markiplier playthrough of it, but I also saw Stephanie draw herself in ink form. So, take this, I guess. I don't know what I got myself into. I was inspired to draw myself in ink form when I saw someone who was my friend at the time draw herself in her own ink form. Conclusion, I wasn't inspired by Looney Tooney's art, nor was I inspired by his main character Weston.
I will say that the ink form art style is very common now since the release of Bendy and the Ink Machine. I am not defending, I am pointing out things I have noticed from my time being online and doing art. Since Fendi and the Ink Machine people seem to latch onto the art style and have even created old-fashioned animations such as the greedy meme in said style. Take my words as you would, I guess, just pointing observations.
The game was about her cutting ties, framing it as if she was the one in the right all this time, and her new love interest as the main character. In this game, there is a library you can visit, which contains the relationships, and, surprise to no one, I was part of this library.
Severance was not about cutting ties. The event may have been, but not the game itself, and it wasn't meant to paint me as being in the right. It was merely artistic venting incorporated into my story.
Lucille gives no clues as to what it was she was venting about. I am still positive she's not truthful about this and it's about her exes.
No one said anything of the sort. You downplay what happened previously, and in filling the comment, your sister left to the degree that it seems people are or have the intention to attack her at all.
I can't understand what she's saying here despite slowing her voice down, but I'll assume she's saying something like, no one has the intention to attack her at all, her being my younger sister. Ostracizing a minor is still harassment. A few of her idols that she looked up to banned her simply because she was my sister.
Who banned her? I read through that whole thing and it only mentioned what Lucille has done. Only at the end did it mention her. Stop normalizing this, Lucille, it will ruin her. Thanks.
This segment isn't directed to her, but to her friends that have kicked or banned my sister from their servers. You cannot say that it's not possible for you to ostracize a minor because you're also a minor. So let me put this in simpler terms for you. Have you ever been bullied in school? Have people ever purposely avoided or excluded you? This is the definition of ostracizing.
Again. Who banned her? There is no proof of this and I am sure no one would ban her just cause she's Lucille's sister, just saying. Yes, we have all experienced some form of unfair bullying, but still.
What you're doing goes against what you're trying to protect.
No one is treating therapy like a magic cure. We all know it's not perfect, but it helps.
If what you're saying is true, then why are people still telling me to get therapy? I could easily assume that they think once I get proper treatment, my sexual attraction to minors will disappear as if it were a magical cure. You said it yourself, it's not perfect, but it helps.
That's what it does, helps. It's not some cure-all, it's therapy. Not miracle working. Everyone needs to stop assuming that's what it is. But Lucille does seem like she needs it to at the very least consider her wrongdoings.
I have been getting therapy for a little over a couple of weeks now. But during my sessions, I'm not talking about how I'm sexually attracted to minors, because that's not something that was an issue in the first place.
Your complete and adamant refusal to get therapy, even bashing it, may sway those in your younger audience to sway away from that if they are considering or currently getting it because their idol said it wouldn't help.
I've clearly said that therapy wouldn't help me, not that it wouldn't help anyone else. But because I was openly bashing and refusing therapy, any impressionable young viewer could see it as such and therefore denied entirely, all because I said so, their idol in your own words.
Why this wasn't emphasized, I have no clue. At this point anything said can be taken out of context. So why she didn't explain I have no clue.
I know what I did was wrong, and it's inexcusable that it took this long for me to say it.
Finally admitting it.
Just how it's inexcusable how it took you this long to speak up about it. You made yourself believe that you were kept in silence because of my manipulation. If I had wanted you to be quiet, then I would have done drastic things to ensure you would stay silent and manipulated you into believing this was okay.
Blaming the victim.
I had even openly expressed in this supposed relationship that I thought it was wrong and illegal, hence my FBI joking. When I attempted to look up non-sexual grooming, it gave me multiple sites talking about how grooming will start with non-sexual touching to desensitize the child. Meanwhile, psychological grooming is about putting an individual into a position that makes them more isolated, dependent, likely to trust, and more vulnerable to abusive behavior that I never showed.
Contradicting yourself? Insert question mark. You may not have fallen to abusive behavior, but you led stream to that thinking.
Online grooming is different from your typical definition of grooming because I didn't have physical access to touch her. But you can argue that the creepy asterisk role-playing was a way of desensitizing her. It was fairly gross, and as I've said previously, I am disgusted by my past behavior. And during the times we've physically seen each other, I didn't think I was overstepping my boundaries. The first time, I admitted to hugging, holding her hand, and giving her a kiss on the cheek, with consent, might I add.
Minors still cannot consent.
She had done the same to me afterward. She says that I gave her lukewarm responses to her problems, which is true, but there is a reason behind it. I'm socially inept, and I know I shouldn't put the full blame on it. It's difficult for me to understand certain social cues without making things awkward and asking for reassurance. I wasn't making an attempt to keep control over you. I had never contacted her or made any attempt to. You justified your silence as proof that you were groomed only when people started commenting on a video that didn't have anything to do with me. Yes, you did appropriate my behavior. I had never asked you to do so. Her reasoning behind not calling the police was because they wouldn't take this seriously because there wasn't any evidence of sexual exploitation or abuse, and it'd most likely be swept under the bus. Yes, that would be the case because grooming will mostly end in sexual exploitation or abuse, while the relationship we had did not. Another reason she brought up was that she didn't want to bring up this with her parents simply because she didn't want to put any more stress on them.
No, she said she would get blamed instead, not what you just said. Again, you are villainizing Stream instead of just outright confessing.
I can understand the fear of disappointing parents, but instead of keeping silent, you should have gone to the police, or an authority figure nonetheless, if you truly believed you were being groomed and manipulated to keep your silence.
What? What the fuck?
If she wants nothing to do with me, then she would have moved on and recovered from this.
What?
But she is still continuing to damage her own mental health for the sake of exposing the things I'm currently doing or have currently done.
What the fuck?
I'm done. My computer is having a horrible time just rendering this as it is, so I think this is the only video on this that I do because I am just not so great at rants or commentaries, and honestly I wanted to do something else. Please look at the links below for the others who have made rants, or look it up, and I'll catch you later.